Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Why Soft Skills Training is More Important Than Ever. The HITEC Advisory Council selected this session from our HITEC Dallas, which was held at the end of September as an Encore presentation. I am Barbara Semerero, your Chapter Relations Coordinator, along with Victoria Schaefer. She is the Senior Membership Manager, and we are hosting today's webinar. And our speaker is Jonas Tanenbaum. We are joined by Jonas, who is the founder of Axcess Consulting, which specializes in assets, assisting clients with sales training, strategy, go-to-market, and business performance improvement. Before Axcess, Jonas was Vice President of Sales and Marketing of Samsung Hospitality TV and Solutions Division for over 10 years, leading a dedicated team of 20+ people to become the #1 brand of TV in hotels and cruise ships in North America. As a veteran and leader of both B2B and B2C businesses, Jonas has created new markets and driven high performance through innovation and strong leadership for over 30 years in consumer electronics industry. Also appearing regularly as a public speaker and a guest lecturer at the university level, Jonas has a passion for teaching sales and business principles to the next generation of leaders. A New Yorker now proudly residing in Charlotte, North Carolina, Jonas enjoys sports and traveling the world for business and pleasure. Now, today's webinar, we will review the value of training practices for onboarding, team building, and skill development, especially soft skills, which relate to a professional's ability to work and communicate effectively with others. The CEO also receives suggestions for a more effective recruiting process. Now, at this time, I would like to hand over the webinar to Jonas. Welcome, Jonas.
Well, thank you very much, Victoria. It's a pleasure to be with you and all of the participants who dialed in virtually today. I'm happy to, when I was asked to give an encore virtual presentation of a session that I held at HITEC in September, which was very well attended. We had upwards of around 100 people at the session when we were in Dallas together, and we had a very good response there. The subject of soft skills and training has become a very hot topic in recent months, both leading up to and following the HITEC session. So any of you who are involved not only in IT or in any aspect of technology, whether it's related to the hospitality business or otherwise, there are some major considerations that need to be taken into account when recruiting, training, hiring, maintaining, and maximizing performance as it relates to both the hard skills and the soft skills, which is the title of today's presentation. Now, if I can attempt to share my screen with you, I will do so, and we can begin. Okay, so welcome to the presentation. This, as I said, is an encore presentation of what was discussed at HITEC. I will draw your attention to the lower portion of this title slide for any participants who would like further information after the presentation today, although there will be some time for Q&A at the end. Please feel free to send me an email at the address you see at the bottom of the screen, info@axcess-consulting.com, and I'd be happy to work with you and discuss anything one-on-one. So one of the beautiful aspects of doing online and virtual presentations is we get to poll our audience. So we're going to come right out of the gate here with a question. Question number 1 is, how familiar were you with the term soft skills or hard skills before hearing about this presentation? A, never heard of it before. B, heard of the terms but not familiar with the details. Or C, was already fully aware of the terminology and currently applying to your HR and career development functions. Give you about 30 seconds to answer those, and then we will share the cumulative results. Okay, so as you can see, about 50% of you have heard of it, but were not familiar with the details. About 16% had never heard of it, and about a third of you were already fully aware of the terminology and currently applying. Actually, no matter how you responded to this, there are some benefits that you're going to get from the presentation that I'm about to share with you today. You'll either have a better understanding of what these terms mean. You'll have a deeper understanding if you're familiar with the terms, but not the details. And if you're already applying, hopefully you'll have a chance to add to your current knowledge and deploy that within your respective organizations. Some data for you before we jump in here is, and again, the focus, although not everybody on this call may necessarily be in the hospitality industry, obviously, given that this was first presented at HITEC, I took some data specifically related to the hospitality industry. So first of all, you can see here, this is a 5-year view, both pre-pandemic using 2019 as a baseline of 100, and then projection for 4 years after the pandemic, last year, 2021, and out through 2023. So the demand index, demand for leisure and travel, you can see everything obviously took a major hit during pandemic, dropping significantly. And as you can see in the case of demand, it's not going to be projected according to these STR numbers as of this year, not until 2023 that demand eclipses that which we experienced in 2019. An ADR index, similar, average daily rate, slow recovery for the ADR. As a matter of fact, not even getting back to pre-pandemic levels until perhaps 2024 or beyond. And similarly for RevPAR, it's going to be a significant multi-year 4 or 5 year time frame before we get back to pre-pandemic levels. So many of you who are in the industry are living this, and as we'll see in the subsequent slide here, you can notice that jobs in the industry have taken a significant hit. This chart, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, this is an 18-month view, and it compares various industry sectors: construction, manufacturing, wholesale, retail and trade, finance, education, and leisure and hospitality. And you can see the job loss was very severe in the leisure and hospitality industry. And there is a recovery that's taking place here over this 18-month period. Again, this goes through 2020, summer of 2021. But you can see that there's still a lag in employment in the sector. The thing I'm hearing as I continue to work with clients in the industry is that the recovery is uneven. Certain segments are doing better than others, but it's going to take some time until, as a complete industry, we reach pre-pandemic levels. This is an interesting and a little bit of a complex slide, but I think it's very interesting. What this basically paints a picture is that the nature of the workforce is changing dramatically. So what this shows you, if you will focus on the United States, although it shows data in several developed countries around the world, is that people are transitioning their jobs as a result of the pandemic. So pre-COVID-19, in the US, the share of the workforce that may need to transition to a new job by 2030 was estimated at 7.9%. The incremental change after the pandemic there was an additional 2.5%, which said, respondents said that they will likely be in a new job or new occupation by 2030, bringing the total to over 10%. Of respondents said that they will be in new jobs. So the indication is that not just is there a reduction in workforce, which has hit the travel and leisure industry particularly hard, but there's also this underlying churn of people in the workforce in general who are switching industries, perhaps getting away from working for a while, coming back into the workforce. There's a lot of change going on, which is another strong underlying force. So what are soft skills? Let's start with a very basic definition. Soft skills are the personal attributes that enable someone to interact effectively and harmoniously with other people. It's implied while on the job. These are the skills that enable you to fit into a workplace and to become, a productive member of a workforce team. By comparison, of course, when we're talking about soft skills, it makes sense that we should also just quickly make sure we define what are the hard skills. Hard skills are the specific knowledge and abilities required for success on a job. These types of skills are usually learned, and they can typically be defined, evaluated, and measured. These are often the skills that are used on job descriptions, and they're usually discussed primarily, if not exclusively, on interviews, but alone, increasingly, we know, cannot foretell an employee's success overall. It really is based on a combination of hard skills and soft skills. So some examples of hard skills would be engineering, accounting, technical specialty, finance, legal, things of that nature. As we'll learn through the seminar today, we'll see that those employees who can exhibit not just the hard skills, which are required for day-to-day performance on the job, but who also have the soft skills, particularly if they're moving from another industry or they've been out of the workforce for some period of time, are really equally important in order to spell success on the job. Now, this brings us to our second question, and I will briefly describe this to you, and then everyone will have a chance to respond, and we'll share the results. If you are a people manager or you are involved in a human relations function, please describe which best describes your current staffing situation. Are you actively or planning to hire within the next 90 days? Are you not planning to hire short term, but you're likely to be hiring sometime next year? Or do you have a hiring freeze until business dictates otherwise? Give about 30 seconds and then we'll share the results. Okay, Victoria, what can you share with us? Oh, so this is very interesting. And it's, as I recall, this has changed since the in-person session that was held at HITEC. So nearly half of you, 8 out of 17 respondents, are actively or planning to hire within the next 90 days. This is very encouraging to see. The other approximately half of you, not quite, are not planning to hire short term, but are getting ready to be doing so next year. And 12%, 2 out of 17 respondents are in a hiring freeze. I remember this was different responses when we were at HITEC, and it has definitely shifted more toward answer A. So I'm very encouraged here to see that it seems that there's more hiring planned either now or within the next 90 days. That's really good news. So let's talk a little bit about why some of the soft skills are harder to identify when hiring. You know, the main reason for that is because, as you might naturally suspect, job descriptions and the interview process typically focus primarily or oftentimes exclusively on the hard skills. Tell me about what you did at your last job. What experience do you have that applies to this job that you may be applying for? What are some of your strengths or weaknesses? And they're typically related to job performance. They're typically use numbers or metrics to measure, what percent of budget were you? Tell me about how many projects did you manage in your last job? It's very natural to fall to and default to the hard skills course of conversation versus focusing on the softer skills. We'll talk a little bit about that, of how to make that transition, how to both recruit for and to also identify soft skills capability during the recruitment and during the interview process. So before we talk about how to implement that, I think it would be good to do a little bit of a deeper dive and talk about the 6 primary areas of soft skills. We talked earlier about that those are an individual's ability to interact, to be part of a team, to communicate. But let's talk a little bit more about what are those 6 primary areas, and we'll give some examples in each one of those areas. So the first is communication. This one seems obvious. It is the most common soft skill area. And some examples of communication are listening. What about a person's ability to effectively use body or facial skills in order to communicate? Certain jobs have the ability to do public speaking, or even communication through email or writing or verbal or other visualization. The ability to assemble information and communicate through PowerPoint or other visual media, depending on the role. All of these are examples of communication, and it is the most fundamental soft skill area. The next area is critical thinking. And this is increasingly an area of focus for people who are hiring in the job market today. And some elements of critical thinking are observation. Critical thinking doesn't necessarily refer to your experience and what you bring based on your past experience, but your ability to come into new situations, to observe both internally and externally, and to be able to draw conclusions either individually or through consensus. We'll talk about that in a minute, but observation is a very, very important element here. And learning. One of the things I think is very difficult is oftentimes we think that the best candidate for a job, for a particular role, is someone who has a lot of experience, a lot of applicable knowledge, but you still need to be able to learn and improve based on either changing circumstances, competitive situation, challenging or unexpected circumstances that may come up internally or externally. Adaptability, the ability to change based on your current situation, and the ability to be flexible. Even if you may be a subject matter expert, you need to exhibit flexibility to be able to change based on what you learn and observe or what's shared with you from others. Innovation, very, very important, particularly in the service and technology industry. And problem solving and resourcefulness. Problem solving, as it sounds, the ability to find resolutions or new paths forward based on obstacles. And resourcefulness is one of my personal favorites. I always ask people on my team or customers who I work with to be resourceful, to not try to solve every problem, even if you know how to do it. Sometimes the better choice and the more efficient choice is to recruit available resources and or to identify resources that are necessary to help to solve problems and in the workplace. So these are all examples under the critical thinking banner, and they are a very critical element of soft skills. Next one is teamwork. And I know this is probably the most natural here, but the ability to collaborate and cooperate and work with others in order to move the ball forward on objectives is critically important. And this is a very challenging area of soft skills. It's also probably one of, arguably, I would say, one of the most sought after and potentially powerful areas that the collective and collaborative efforts of a team has the ability to be much more effective than an individual. I also know that this is an area at the collegiate level today that is emphasized much more than it was years ago. And I think that's a great thing. I have both personal experience as a guest lecturer at the collegiate level and having a son who just went through a business school program, that they are emphasizing teamwork much more than before. And it is a great thing because it is reflective of what's required in the workplace in order to be productive. So collaborate, cooperate. Being self-aware is also very important. I do a lot of mentorship and coaching with new salespeople as well as sales leaders. The ability to be reflective of oneself, to identify both things that you're doing well, as well as areas for improvement based on your own awareness, as well as gathering feedback from others, helps to drive better performance. Diversity awareness, very important. And not just being aware of it, but also incorporating that and being sensitive to the point where that becomes part of your DNA in interacting with other people within the organization. And persuasion. I do a lot of sales training and sales skills training. Even if you're not in sales, even if it's internally, everyone is always selling to some extent at some point. I'm a big believer. And the ability to understand what are those emotional cues that can help cooperate and persuade others to do what's in the best interest of the group is a very important skill under the header of teamwork. Next area I'll focus on is positive attitude. Having a belief that you are confident in what you're doing based on facts, being honest, respectfulness with others within the organization, being able to ask others to do their part. Doing that within a humble and a respectful manner is very important. Also being patient. Sometimes people who are very driven, they have to understand that not everybody works at exactly the same pace. But as long as there's good communication, and obviously you could draw lines between these boxes as I go through them to understand there's a direct relationship between being patient and being honest, and the way you communicate with someone, both verbally and using body and facial skills, presents a positive attitude and raises up the energy and the productivity of everybody on your team or on a collateral team who you may need to rely on as well. Fifth area is leadership, and leadership is important at every level of an organization, whether you are the leadership team or a leader of a group, or using leadership skills to help with a peer or someone who you may be working with is very important. So taking this within the context of each individual contributor, the ability to make decisions, in some cases to delegate work and responsibility to others within the organization, being able to handle conflict management, mentoring, as well as motivating people who work with you or people on other teams. You want to provide adequate motivation and a reasonable motivation for them as well. Talent management and people development is extremely important. And any of you who are on the call who are involved in an HR function or even not have to really respect and embrace the talent and management of people. Critically important. The last area I'll touch on here is work ethic. Again, you could draw the line down to the energy element under positive attitude, but having an energetic, motivated, always ethical, results-based organization that is strategic and persistent and develops a good, healthy balance of both independence as well as teamwork. These are typically not the 6 areas that are certainly put into a job description or discussed on an interview. However, I think many of you would agree that these traits and these behavioral aspects are all critically important historically, and ever more so the case in today's work world with a changing and very turbulent base of workers in our industry, these skills are extremely important for overall productivity. A happy team is a productive team. Now, the service industry, hospitality, is, I think, particularly unique because I believe this is where technology routinely intersects with the customer experience. And one could argue, and I would certainly advocate, that combining soft skills and hard skills together is practically really what is important to get the best, to recruit and develop and retain the best team players. And that's what we call hybrid skills. So hybrid skills is combining the hard skills and the soft skills together to get both the most technically competent team as well as the team that has the best understanding and execution of the soft skills that I reviewed on the previous page. Now on here, I've put together a couple of examples of both combining hard skills or technical skills as well as soft skills, communication, teamwork, etc. So an example there would be engineering combined with collaboration. So on the engineering team, certainly knowing the nuts and bolts of engineering, but also collaborating when it comes to perhaps project execution, excuse me. Another example is project planning. Can be a very technically oriented skill, but at the same time, a project planner, if my computer would collaborate with me here. Yeah, project planning often needs to work with vendor management. So making sure that people on the outside are helping you hit milestones. Again, that's where the soft skills come into play. Another example here is content management, very important in today's leisure and travel industry. Making sure that content management, you may have to forge some strategic partnerships, whether that's with a content provider or a revenue sharing opportunity or something like that. Another example of combining hard skills and soft skills. And the last one, a very typical one, is IT resources, general affairs, where you've got everything from networks to contracts to execution across property or different areas. Combining that with having an understanding for what your guest or customer journey or experience looks like, which would be fostered by having a better understanding for soft skills. So these are just a couple of examples. I think each of you in your respective areas could probably think of many examples where practically you need to combine hard skills and soft skills to have that hybrid employee that really can be able to fire on all cylinders. So this is a very simple, but I think it's a very telling chart where we talk about trying to achieve that upper right corner. How do you get a hybrid champion, an employee that has the ability to do what I was giving some examples of on the prior page. And this is what this really takes is a combination of a person's mindset and their skill set. So on the bottom or horizontal plane, you can see on the skill set range, people who are on the left, maybe they're immature, maybe meaning that they're new to a certain business, they don't have the experience. On the far right, you've got people who are extremely skilled and who know what they're doing. They have a ton of experience. On the vertical axis, on the mindset, you might have people who are not really interested in dealing with other people. They're not particularly self-aware. They can be viewed as abrasive. They're not cooperative. They don't have good communication skills. That would be on the low part of the scale. On the high set, you have people who are very good communicators, and they've got the ability to work well with others and work well as a team and be self-reflective, and they're very strong on the soft skills range. So what you've got here, as you can see, is what you really want is to try to find those individuals who are both mature on the skill set and open in their mindset, which will help you create the hybrid champion. The other cases are people who might be particularly skilled but closed-minded. They would be a hybrid resistor. Or likewise, you've got folks who might be very open to a new way of doing business, sorry, a new way of interacting with others, but they don't have the skill set yet. They would be hybrid strivers, but not achieving the gold cup here, which is a hybrid champion. So this is what we want to try to foster in our workplaces, both strong skills as well as open-minded mindset, and that will help us achieve the hybrid champions. A couple pieces of data here that I think are important, and then we'll get to our third out of four survey questions. 52%, according to Indeed survey, over 2,000 respondents, 52% of job seekers say that the quality of a job description is very or extremely influential on their decision to apply for a job. So this is really important, and the takeaway here is that writing a really good job description is very important. I'll come back to that a little bit later. And 72%, nearly 3/4 of job seekers say that it is extremely or very important to see some detail about company culture in the job description. Now, again, this is a little bit of a danger zone here. You don't want to, I believe, reveal too much about, certainly nothing confidential, or you don't want to go too far, wade too deeply into the waters about describing soft skill requirements in a job description, but something about corporate culture or something about respect for or mention of the soft skills within the job description, of course, in addition to or as an overlay to the hard skills necessary. The marketplace today is telling us that that is very important. Okay, we're on question number 3. If you are in hiring mode, which sounds like more than 3/4 of you on this job are, or you soon will be, please describe which statement best describes your recruiting. A, it's easy to attract candidates with the right qualifications. B, you get a lot of applicants, but often with misaligned or inappropriate skill sets. C, it's hard to attract any candidates at all. Or D, you can attract ample candidates with the right hard skills, but they often don't fit your corporate identity. Okay, Victoria, let's take a look at our responses. All right, so most of you, it's hard to attract any candidates at all. That is not surprising, but very, very challenging for you. So let's talk a little bit about how we might manage that current situation. So let's talk about what I consider to be the 5 phases of soft skills management. First of all, it's, as I mentioned on a prior slide, the data shows that your job description should focus on hard skills, but some soft skill references are good. I would limit it to corporate culture, not anything about individual performance or anything like that, but it is good to make some indication that whether it is strong communication skills, ability to work within a group, self-awareness, and or what type of soft skills that you're looking for. You can go back to this as a reference and pick some of the words out of the 6 different areas and try to weave some references about the importance of soft skills into the recruiting process, specifically the job description. On the interview process, that's your opportunity with your candidates who have gone through some initial screening to give some introduction of the soft skill requirements and then a deeper discussion of your particular corporate culture. To explain to the candidate what is important within your company, what types of behaviors are both rewarded as well as what might be frowned upon. And I also think it's a good idea to come in with some preset questions related to that hybrid employee. In other words, someone who is open-minded to soft skills application for their job, and at the same time who is a high performer with a demonstrated ability for the particular hard skills, and come up with some situational analysis and ask the candidate how she or he would react in a given situation. Those are good questions to have on tap during the interview process. Then when you actually hire your candidates, there should be during the welcoming and onboarding process, a very clear description of KPIs or key performance indicators. Review them with the candidate, or no longer a candidate, now your new hire, confirm understanding, and then confirm acceptance. Dialogue here is critically important. And I would also make sure, because this type of dialogue might be new to some people, to make sure that there is confirm and accept, that there's understanding about what the expectation is. And then the other nice thing too, another great technique, is to demonstrate and identify the soft skills requirement through your example or through your trusted mentor example. So perhaps associate a new hire with a mentor or a leader and say, I want you to stick with a certain person for a period of time. For maybe it's just a couple of weeks or a month or two. Someone who you feel can lead through a good example of demonstrating soft skills individually as well as throughout the team. And feedback is critically important. Frequent and regular performance reviews. My suggestion is no longer than 90 days within a new job, definitely after 6 months, and of course, annually. It's very important to provide feedback and as well as receive feedback from the new hire to understand how she or he is doing in that new job. I would also encourage teamwork and effort beyond the hard skills that were in the job description. Recognize and reward demonstration of soft skills, not just demonstration of mastery of hard skills as well. Also very much an advocate of the open door policy. That door swings both ways, both new hires being able to give feedback as well as receive feedback, whether it's within the structure of a 90-day or 6-month sit down formal review, or it can even be on the job, as long as it's done professionally, confidentially, with a high level of respect and demonstrating the soft skills that we're trying to develop. I'm also a big believer in mentorship. I think it's a really good idea to assign a mentor as a resource to a new hire outside of the direct report relationship. So if you've got new employee A reporting to director B, to bring in a mentor C, someone who this person can work with, bounce ideas off, and use as a resource besides the direct report relationship, and then request any feedback and involvement from the employee. So this is a quick overview. And again, as I mentioned, I'd be more than happy to go through any particular points one-on-one. Please feel free to send an inquiry to the email that I shared at the top of the hour. The 4 pillars to a happy and engaged employee. This is one of my favorite things. It's very fundamental, but it is also, I think, very telling. And oftentimes simplicity is the best way forward. If employees understand these 4 pillars well, and they've been clearly articulated and communicated and confirmed back from the employees, you're increasing your chance of both harmony and execution. What is the company's mission? Understand that from the top leadership. It's very important that that is both distilled, articulated, and communicated effectively. Number 2, what is my role within the mission? I understand what the department or what the company is doing. What is my particular contribution to that overall mission? Number 3, do I have the tools to accomplish my role? And if not, what are, as I mentioned before, one of the key soft skills is resourcefulness. Who do I go to help solidify, burnish, identify, or develop the tools in order for me to accomplish my role within the company? And 4th, and most importantly, arguably, is, does the company care for me personally and professionally? And the answer to those 2 questions need to be an unequivocal yes and yes. And that speaks directly to the soft skills element of being a satisfied, happy, and therefore productive worker individually and as part of a team. I know what I'm doing. I understand the resources that are there or what I need to do to build them. And the company does care for me personally and professionally. And there's an expectation for me to be a soft skill champion respectful, teamwork, self-respected, as well as respecting diversity and teamwork within the overall company, you're then setting yourself up for success. Okay, the fourth and last question, which is kind of a reflection of your current work culture and work environment. Please answer A, B, C, or D. Which best describes your current team or company? You have strong hard skills and strong soft skills in your company. B, you have strong hard skills, meaning good technical, but weaker on the soft skills. You have weak or misaligned hard skills, which is obviously an execution problem, but strong soft skills. People care about each other. We communicate well, but not a lot of work is getting done. Or 4, you're a real hybrid company. You've got strong hard skills and strong soft skills in action today. Which of these 4 best describes your current team or company makeup? We'll give 30 seconds for you to reply. I'm going to guess before we see the results. I'm going to give a few more minutes to not skew the answers, a few more seconds, but I'm going to guess that answer B, number 2, is probably the biggest group. All right, Victoria, let's see what we've got. All right, it's close. Yes, B by a hair. So strong hard skills and weaker soft skills, which is the legacy setup. Most companies respond with B. The point is, now let's just see what else. It's pretty evenly distributed here, actually. And I'm encouraged to see that 38% have strong hard skills and strong soft skills. So a good hybrid company, which is good, but unfortunately still the minority of respondents here. The goal is to get all of you to hybrid. So let's bring it all together here. Actually, our timing is pretty good as I bring it down the home stretch, leaving some time for Q&A or text or chat responses. What's really key here is, as I've mentioned a few times, is communication. It is really the ultimate, or the number 1 soft skill, being able to communicate amongst employees, one-to-one, one-to-many, or many-to-one. And that's an interesting way to do that. When I say one-to-one, that's obviously your peer group. One-to-many for leadership, or for a director of a department, to be able to make sure that communication is frequent and two-way. And then also, many-to-one, to be able to poll and have a good pulse on the overall population of people in a department, or across the company, so that leadership can understand that. Those are all types of communication that are highly effective and should always be taking place simultaneously. And that communication needs to be consistent, meaning it can't just be once a year during a holiday note. It needs to take place consistently, arguably every day, both structured and unstructured, to make sure that people are both understood as well as working together through good communication skills. Another important part of this is to document. There needs to be a certain element of the communication and soft skill development that is structured and scheduled. And that can be, through an HR resource, as well as just simply through email and note taking through a one-on-one meeting. There's also several new software tools that are available to reward and give, whether it's shout out, reward points, things like that, to be able to allow employees to be able to recognize their peers or their leadership team for a job well done. And that promotes further communication and further soft skill enhancement. And that's all of which is a means to share across the organization. And then there's an implicit, career path message here that comes along with this. And it's important, I think, from day one, upon taking a new job with a company, to make sure that key performance indicators are communicated, that there's alignment and acceptance and understanding between a new employee and their direct report boss, as well as what the expectation is between that employee and their peers and their associates within their group. Understanding team segmentation, as well as leadership review. I want to just dwell on leadership review for a minute because I have found this to be a very effective way of making sure that there's alignment across the organization. So what I mean specifically by leadership review is allowing the leaders of the company or of a division to confidentially share their feelings about their own team, as well as their observance and feedback about the performance of others, to make sure that the leadership team is aligned about high performance or high potential employees, as well as those who are perhaps just doing their job, but might not be the potential for further leadership roles within the company. And as well as being able to exchange and share other ideas about the performance across the group. This helps leaders to make consensus decisions when it might come time for a new role or for promotion or for other career advancement decisions that will take place over time. So this type of leadership review and consensus building can be a very effective means of helping the leadership team to advance the company, succession planning and things of that nature, as well as helping to smooth the path for career advancement and alignment for others within the organization. Okay, so that brings me to a close. We're at about 10 minutes before the hour. Victoria and Barbara, do we have a facility to field any questions either through chat or live at the end of the program?
Yes, if anybody wants to go ahead and type in their questions, either through the chat or the Q&A tab, then we can go ahead and read them off for the group. Let's see, and then also Jonas's email is there on the screen for you, so you can always reach out to him. I do have a couple questions. And going through your presentation, one was hard skills. Seems we can always test for hard skills, you know, such as math, a math exam, you know, to show that they have competency in that area. But with the soft skills and trying to test for those is by situational analysis. And are we looking for a correct answer for our company culture, or are we just looking to find out how that person would react?
That's a good
question.
Yeah,
it's
no,
kind of rambling. I'm trying to.
No, it's a good question, because if the question is about, you know, do you know how to set up a Wi-Fi network and what should be the, you know, the gigabyte range or minimum requirement, it's a very easy question. It's either right or it's wrong. You either know the material or you don't know the material. So getting an understanding of an individual's soft skills competency is a harder thing to ascertain. I think my recommendation there would be to go back to this slide right here. And first of all, I would suggest taking an inventory, okay, of what are, you know, go through this list, I would suggest, and say, highlight or bold the maybe the 10 or 12, for example, most important soft skill traits that you're looking for. Okay, that would be step number one. What's most important for the company or for success in a particular role? And then when I talked about some situational analysis, and I think Victoria, you mentioned it in the question, come up perhaps with certain scenarios that would then elicit the type of response that you are looking for. So come up with a situation to say, let's say you're in a situation where you think a path forward, you need to recommend course A, and one of your counterparts is suggesting course B. How would you handle that situation? So it allows the respondent to talk about, perhaps communication, negotiation, empathy, patience, or how competitive are they? What is their decision-making process? And just the way that person would express that and the way they would problem solve that situation, I think would reveal quite a bit to the interviewer about whether or not the candidate has, a growing ability to do soft skill. The other thing I would add too is that oftentimes we need to look not just for the soft skill, but for the soft skill capacity, meaning that they may not have learned or have had the opportunity to exercise some of the soft skills as much in a prior role, but we need to find high potential soft skills people who are open-minded. As I mentioned before on this hybrid chart that I showed, I'm sorry to click through here, but getting here. So we want someone who has a mindset which is open, meaning that they are a hybrid striver. And if we can find someone who is a hybrid striver who's open to, oh, I understand what you're saying. Yes, I understand why that might be important. I can see how that might help be the better business practice. And they already have the hard skill set in place. You're looking for that potential. There's not a lot of hybrid champions just walking around looking for a job. Part of this is on us to look for soft skill potential and then fuel that with the corporate culture that we are looking for. So hopefully that addresses some of those questions.
Staying on this slide here, there was kind of ties into it from the hybrid strivers versus the hybrid resistors. When looking, is it easier to move an employee from a striver to the champion, even though it sounds like perhaps we are an underperforming company, versus trying to move the hybrid resistors up to a champion?
So good question for sure. Look, this is a very simple chart meant to show that you want both strong skill set and open-mindedness. That's the bottom line, as simply as I can say it. I don't want to, I would say that I think if it's probably in most cases easier to teach the skills, the hard skills, than it is to teach the open-mindedness. Because the hard skills, you simply show, okay, here's the fishing rod, all right? You pull it back over your right shoulder and you throw it out like that. And then you just do it over and over. Okay, yeah, I think I got it here. Whereas some of those other skills that we showed on the soft skills page, and there are, a whole range of probably 30, 40 different skills that I showed on there. It takes time to be able to identify and develop and both reward and enhance people to understand that. And that's why I mentioned earlier, by doing that through leadership, and through example, sometimes it's easier to show and as a teaching tool, and then to reward it when it takes place, to make sure that people are open and receptive to understanding that the soft skills in the workplace can be equally important and equally effective in getting the job done.
I think this kind of rolls into another question that we have in the chat, which is any suggestions for department heads to facilitate soft skill training for the staff. And it sounded like you were saying it's through doing them as a leader, showing them soft skills, and then when they replicate it, then rewarding them through shout outs or other
that's a
feedback. But But also, is there any formal education or training? Have you seen for these skills, soft skills?
So unfortunately, I'm having some difficulty hearing you, Victoria, but I think your question was about, is there some formal training that can be done to help enhance soft skills? Was that the nature of your question?
Yes.
Yes. And the answer to that is yes. I mean, today's session is a 50-minute overview on the subject, but certainly I've done deeper dives with actually a local company here. I have one coming up that is going to be a soft skills training that's going to work across the entire division to help identify what does that mean, give examples of it. You can even do some role playing and some practice skill sets. So this is a real growing area in the HR world. I believe that the effectiveness and the importance of it and making sure that it is an integral part of both management, career development, and an HR program is increasing significantly. And especially when you look at some of those workforce dynamics where you've got, as I mentioned, you're going to have upwards of 10% or more of the workforce within the next 5 to 10 years who are going to be changing jobs in new industries, trying to change hard set. There's also some affiliation of different tendencies among different generational sets. Perhaps some baby boomers might be hybrid resistors, meaning they've been doing something for a longer time. They're very good at what they do, but perhaps they're less open-minded to some of the benefits of soft skill. Whereas you've got some of the newer, millennial or Gen Z generations who are branded sometimes as being, they're very open to being hybrid drivers, but they don't have the skill set yet because they're either newer in their career and so on. So I think it can be both interesting to have those discussions. You certainly don't want to bucket people based on the year that they were born. Each individual needs to be looked at for his or her own merits and skills and so on. But this is a real growing area in HR and management and leadership training to be aware of both of these dynamics when recruiting, training, and then importantly when developing talent within an organization.
Let's see, Jonas, we're kind of coming up to an hour here. Do you want to go ahead and go to the slide with your email address on it again?
Yes, I'd be happy to.
Take that down. And do you have anything else you want the audience to know before we close out today's session?
No, just again, I really appreciate, I know people are, virtual meeting to death these days. So I genuinely appreciate everyone dialing in and showing interest in this topic. It has picked up momentum, as I say, in recent months. I was glad to be able to be recruited by the HFTP team. You have a great educational commitment to educational resources by that group. So I commend you for that. And thank you for the platform and helping. Happy to continue the conversation with anyone who would like. Please feel free to send an inquiry to that email address, and I'd be pleased to follow up and work together with you. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Jonas, for your presentation today. Just a few other housekeeping items for those on attending. If you're needing CPE credit, please note that an email will be sent tomorrow with the CPE credit language on it. Please keep that email in your records. And also on the HFTP website, under virtual education, for those of you who are going to submit credit for the CHAE or CHTP, there is a tracking Excel form there that you can use to submit your credit. And with that, I want to thank Jonas and everyone else for attending, and this will conclude today's webinar.